What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ProRevenge. This story's called Neighbors Steal Our Dog. We Take Their Kids. Whoa, what? This happened when I was around 12 to 13, so the details might be a little skewed. Most of my childhood, the house right next to ours has been condemned and abandoned. The property owners were willing to sell the land for $200. That's how bad it was. Eventually, someone bought it and threw a manufactured home on it to replace the condemned home. Soon, a nice old man moved in next door, and we didn't pay too close attention because he kept to himself. That was until his daughter moved in with him. Soon our quiet little neighborhood turned into an episode of white trash in trouble. The daughter would fight with her spouse about every little thing and keep my family, along with our neighbors, up half the night. Their kids were the worst part of it all. We never knew how many kids lived in that house because so many different children and adults were in and out of there all the time. Me and my siblings tried to become friends with him, but we ended up being more of their babysitters. They would come over to our house, and each of my siblings had a group of kids, 3 to 4 each, to watch over. These kids would walk in uninvited into our house, then steal our toys and games from our rooms. Honestly, they stole stuff from all over our house, but this was the main areas, or these were the main areas. They would either take it for themselves or throw it in our backyard river. They would constantly run in and out of our house, even if no one was with them. They would steal all of the fruit in the basket my mom left out for us. My mom confronted them about it, and their 3-year-old son called her a bean bag patch. The parents, wait, that's actually a pretty cool idea. Like a patch and a quilt, that's like bean bag. That's actually stupid. The parents refused to apologize for their behavior, saying stuff like, "If you loved it so much, you wouldn't have let them take it," or "Don't parent my kid." One thing they would specifically do with me is they pulled on my hair all the time. I'm a tomboy, and they would just call me a boy in a wig because
girls can't play with skateboards, girls can't play with ninja action figures,
or any other gender stereotype. They would constantly bombard me because they truly didn't know girls were allowed to play with anything they wanted. One of their heavier children stole my skateboard and jumped on it, breaking it in half. Similar to that "so no head" vine. I love that vine. Or is that a vine? I don't think it is. Is it? Is it that old? Then they said I shouldn't have been playing with one anyway. There are plenty more examples, but I think you get the point. The neighbors decided that because our house was nicer, or that we could afford basic things, that they had permission to run an electrical line from our house to theirs. Which in itself is a bad thing, but they decided to run off our electric bill to triple the cost of our original. We were lower middle class / below poverty level, so we couldn't afford that kind of bill. The rule in our house is, if you're not using it, it is turned off. That's why my parents were awfully surprised to see an $800 electric bill. I'm sure Times Square costs less than that. Eventually, a person from our electric company came out to our house to see what was happening. They then found an extension cord running to their house. The electrician simply unplugged it and said that should be the end of the problem. My mom politely but sternly went to the neighbors and said that this was not okay. The neighbor had a small adult tantrum about it and cussed my mom out, but eventually came back into her home. My mom was obviously not pleased with her behavior, but tried not to escalate the situation any further. Our neighbors tried a few more times to run the line from our house to theirs. Each time when we unplugged it, they would cuss us out and send their kids over to destroy something else in our home. Eventually, mom straight up told them if they come on our property again, she would call the police and press charges. We could still be friends with their kids, but they weren't allowed on our land. "I will shoot to kill, woman!" They decided that because we won't let them use our electricity, the next best option was to steal our dog from the backyard and claim our dog attacked her kids, even though our dog was harmless and cowers at everything due to bad owners before us. Aww. The pound came and took our puppo away. By the time my brothers and I got home, she was already gone. We just assumed she ran off to our grandmother's who lived down the street. And she would do this often because my grandma spoils her. When my parents came home, they about lost it, learning our dog was missing. By the time we found her at the pound, they were putting her up for adoption. My parents had to re-adopt our dog because we didn't claim them in time. We even had her tags that said that she belonged to us. The pound told us why the dog was taken, and my mom said enough was enough. Now the revenge. When my mom got home, she sent my little brother over to their house to play with their kids. My brother became a little spy that day. His job was to look around their house and report anything that could be suspicious. We learned from them that they were sitting 3 kids to a twin bed. The entire house was cramped and dirty. The old man that lived there was hardly home because he couldn't stand his adult daughter that lived there. All around, the kids were being neglected. With the information my brother gathered, my mom called CPS, or Child Protective Services, on the home. Within the month, all the children, minus one, who the old man cared for, were removed from the home. While I agree the foster system is bad, it was definitely better than what they were going through in that house. The mother of the children started to fight with the old man, her father, on everything. Because her kids were no longer there as a distraction, the old man was to be her next victim. The old man eventually was fed up with her and kicked her out of the home. All that was left in the home was the old man and the grandson he was fostering. They are both very kind and amazing neighbors. Yikes. Man, talk about no good endings. I mean, yes, good ending, but like bittersweet. Jeez. I was hoping it would be some sort of kidnapping story, but like not bad kidnapping, but like funny, silly kidnapping. I guess that doesn't make sense. Kidnapping is still bad. But we can agree that some kidnappings are worse than others. Like if they were to like kidnap them without them even realizing they were kidnapped or whatever. But like, I guess not kidnapping, but just like coaxing them to like abandon their home or whatever. Like, haha, that'll show them. But I guess that'd be weird. See, no good endings. Like there's no better option. Like it's not like the mom could magically become a mom. I'm glad for that one kid, though, that wasn't separated from his family. Wait, maybe... Well, they wouldn't separate siblings, right? I know that happens all the time, but like... See, this is why it's not good. Alright, this story's called Revenge by Proxy on My Former Bully Boss Via My New Boss. Alright, here's the cast.
Former boss.
Current boss. I left an office job for teaching training. Now, this office job was incredibly toxic. I'd constantly be getting berated and humiliated for the tiniest of mistakes. Sometimes it wouldn't be mistakes, but me not doing things the correct way. And once or twice even over things that weren't my fault. Former boss, let's call him Schmitty. Schmitty, while I wouldn't say he was the worst culprit, he took silver or bronze, contributed a lot to this culture, and was very much in there with the other bullying instigators. One afternoon, he spent 2 hours going through things on my desk, aggressively asking me why I had certain things on my desk, before yelling at me to throw them in the bin, in front of everyone. Another time, he threatened me with performance management if, and this is true, I didn't start crossing things out of my notepad. He'd chew me out for things which, as I said, weren't my fault or responsibility, but because his bully buddies decided it would be a good idea to throw me under the bus over it anyway, he'd bend over backwards for them like he always did and put me in the crap. He'd only ever speak to me if he was having a go at me about something, or if he wanted me to do him a favor. He'd demand I cover other members of staff in other departments, so I'd be unable to complete my own actual work and my workload would pile up. When I had one-to-ones with him, he'd ask me to bring my bits into his office, which was my work trays with my paperwork so he could root through it and scrutinize everything. He'd often try to guilt trip me when telling me off.
Such and such has worked so hard to make sure everything is right, so mistakes like this aren't helping.
He just wasn't my idea of a good person to have in charge. Spineless, micromanaging, disrespectful, condescending, green moose, rubber goose, large fries, chocolate shake! And he clearly had ego issues as well, with the way he'd always need to assert himself to me and make an example of me. Dad? So as I said, I quit to do teacher training, and in stark contrast to my previous job, and despite how more challenging the work was in comparison, it went very well. Lots of praise, lots of positivity, lots of encouragement, and anytime I actually got anything wrong, it was addressed in a helpful and constructive manner. A breath of fresh air right after what I had to endure. Hey, I've heard the exact same things about the military. Oh wait, no, that's the Paw Patrol. Same thing. The teacher training went so well that, Oscar, the head of department, wanted me to stay on at that school for my second placement. The second placement was more difficult because, of course, I had more lessons to teach, but despite this, it went very well, and I was still going from strength to strength. My mentor and Oscar could see this, and eventually Oscar offered me a teaching role for the following year, subject to me passing my training first, of course. The problem was, because I had the same mentor for both placements, I was only able to have one reference from my experience within a school. So, Oscar suggested to me to ask my former boss for a character reference. I made some comments in passing, trying to play it off as a joke about how he was a bit of a Richard, but Oscar started pushing me as to why I thought that. I ended up telling him quite a lot, not just about Schmitty, but the other two employees who would antagonize me. He was surprised I got treated like that because he thought I had a great attitude towards work, and I always worked hard and pushed myself to get better and better. He said they sounded like horrible people, and I did the right thing to get out of somewhere where I wasn't being treated well. So I bit the bullet and called my old boss to ask for a reference, which he disinterestedly said,
"Yeah, okay."
Not asking how I was, no asking how I'd been getting on, just a minute-long conversation. I passed his number to Oscar, and then Oscar called me into his office. Oscar basically said to me he was gonna call Schmitty on loudspeaker, and he wanted me to be there for it. I asked him why, and he said, "Just watch." Oscar called Schmitty, who answered. There was the usual greeting, and then Oscar explained that he needed a reference. Schmitty responded with a very generic,
"He works hard, shows up on time, he's a nice guy,"
etc., as if it was a formality. Hey, then the conversation went a little like this. Not exactly quote by quote, but you get the picture.
"How's he been getting on?"
"Really well. He's progressing brilliantly. He clearly works hard, his subject knowledge is strong, he's well prepared and organized for his lessons, and it's a pleasure to be giving him a full-time job here at our school."
"Oh, that's good to hear."
Yeah, he's been fantastic. I don't want to sound big-headed here and take credit for his progress, because he's done so well, but you know what I think has been a huge factor in this?
"What's that?"
The fact we've treated him with respect and helped him with his confidence. Oh, you know when you humiliate members of staff in front of everyone, going through their belongings, and you threaten them with sanctions over silly things like not crossing things out of their notepad, and you expect their performance to improve? It doesn't work.
"Oh, how do you know about that? He hasn't told you."
He's told me everything. Are you surprised his performance dropped with the way you treated him?
Well, yeah, you know, sometimes where we are, we have days where it gets stressful, so everyone needs to be on top of the—
I'm a teacher. I know what a stressful work environment is. But instead of belittling your staff, you work together and help each other. Because of your attitude and the attitude of your little friends, you have lost a brilliant member of staff. But your loss is our gain.
Well, he'd make mistakes and we just talk to him about them.
Yeah, and he hasn't got everything 100% perfect here. He doesn't get everything right all the time. None of us do. But we don't demonize him, or humiliate him, or make him feel useless and stupid and incompetent. We encourage him to work on these areas in a helpful manner. And he responds well, because we treat him with respect, and we also focus strongly on the positives too. There's loads of positives, by the way.
Look, can I call you back? I've just got something to do real quick.
Schmitty never called him back. I was quite taken aback by what Oscar did. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. He's always been a good guy, and he's always looked out for me, but I would have thought what I told him about my old job, he'd feel was none of his business. That was about as good as it gets, because I never once pulled my work bullies up about their crap. I just avoided all confrontation, and they must have felt that after I left, they got away with it. I'm glad I was able to, in a way, finally get my revenge. Maybe not as brutal as some of the other stories on here, but for a moment, Schmitty was made to feel small as a result of his behavior towards me, and that was satisfying enough. This sounds like your new man called your old man. He's like, hey, you didn't treat her right, and now she's prospering, man. Look at her. She's so hot.
Wouldn't have been this hot with you. You just always called her ugly. Made her feel ugly. Now she feels beautiful. And it shows. Look at her. I see lots of children in our future because you're gonna be a teacher. Suck on it, Schmitty. Oh.
This story's called, So You Want to Park Where You Shouldn't? Not my story, but the other day my brother went to the shop with his baby. The supermarket where he lives has very few parking spots for parents with children. If you are not familiar, those spots have extra spaces for taking out prams and getting little ones out of a car. As he was getting his baby out, a guy with no kid decided to park his SUV across two of these spots. My brother challenged him about it. He had taken the last two spots on a busy day. The guy ignored him and went into the supermarket, clearly in a rush. So my brother took a picture of that guy's car and showed it to someone in reception. Straight away, they made an announcement for that guy to go park elsewhere, and my brother got to see that inconsiderate person walking out fuming, car keys in hand, with no shopping. Hope it will teach him a lesson. Edit. Thank you for the awards. It's really kind of you. Just because it's been asked a few times, it's all happening in the UK. Just for clarity, it's pretty common to have parents with children's spaces and they are clearly labeled as such. There are usually very few of these, so it's almost never an issue to find a parking space because of them if you are childless. It's not a legal crime to park in those, but it's seen as inconsiderate by most people. Yeah. You're welcome for the awesome badass Disney style singing of the edit portion. Haha. Good night, people. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.